So for the purposes of this stream, I probably won't be replying so much in the chat if I do get anybody in the chat. I just noticed as I was planning this, Christian Homestead had gone live just before me, and most of my subscribers are also on his channel. So mainly I want this to be put out to a broader audience, and recording it live is just the easiest way to get it up there right away. So here's the thing is, many of you know that I'm running for sheriff in Idaho. And I've been speaking at cottage meetings, going to various little meetings, and we have some town halls, and generated a lot of traction. In fact, one of the coolest things we have is we have this T intersection right near the high school, and the other two candidates I'm running against have these giant banners right there, so everybody can see it as they come through that high traffic area. Well, just 2 nights ago, those two banners were taken down and mine was put up. That's the type of change. What I keep hearing lately is people simply just don't know who I am. So for the purposes of this, I'm making the video for YouTube and also for Facebook. Last night I was speaking at a cottage meeting, and the conversation came up about the significant threat to the GOP in Idaho. And what would that be? Like the grand old party. It's the Republican platform. We have a large faction of so-called Republicans. And yes, this is going to be a political thing, and I typically don't talk like this, but this now has to be said. We're having millions of dollars funneled into our state from Democrat liberal sources to fund people, programs within the Republican Party, which claim to be Republican. Oh, sure, they're upstanding gentlemen and everything, but their voting record, they vote for transgender ideologies. They vote for pornographic materials in our children's schools and in our libraries. These are the things that they're voting for. State-funded transgender surgeries. We had one in the Idaho Department of Corrections. There was a prisoner who had this done, paid for by your taxpayers. Thank you very much. And these are our lawyers, our Republican high upstanding people, right? Well, not too many people know this, but we had a significant member of the Republican Party here in Idaho who's also a significant businessman, very important person in the world's eyes. There's a lot of controversy surrounding him. What was it, last year? And we had this, for lack of a better word, Rhino group, using his situation as a fulcrum to try and leverage support and frustration against actual Republican conservatives, like myself. Now, I didn't get into politics because I love politics. I didn't get into all this stuff. It was asked of me. I wanted to know people's platform, and I wasn't satisfied hearing, well, everybody knows this guy, they like him, and he looks good in a cowboy hat. That's his platform. I said, that's not good. This other guy's offering me solutions, measurable solutions. He's giving me data. That's how I end up getting involved with these things and being involved in the community, like privately, outside of law enforcement. But this upstanding person, the Rhinos were using him, saying that we're doxing children, that we're, hey Betty, that we're doxing children, that we're doing things that put his family at risk because he was a member of the Republican GOP and held an important position there. Yet he moved and relocated to a different state. In fact, his housing was in a different state. The Boise big money party people, the was it the No Child Left Behind or Common Core math, provider people? These guys were advocating that he maintain his position of importance, because that's their foothold. That's their delegate to Washington, D.C. Whereas we are like, hold on a second, hold up, wait, this guy's not a citizen here in Idaho. I get it. He's got, a family member's home in his name that he pays bills for, but nobody lives there. So technically he's getting around some rules, but the true spirit of it, it's breaking rules. He's in violation of these things. When taxes come out, who's he paying taxes to? His, and this is something I called him up directly and said, look, we're having local people write in the newspaper blaspheme our candidate or our GOP members, our precinct members. Precinct members are like people who are elected by their party, who are over certain geographical locations and neighborhoods, and they're the go-to source for what's going on in the community and with the Republican Party and getting information out there, right? So they're attacking these volunteers who put themselves up. They don't get money from this. It's just they volunteer, they get elected, and now they're getting smeared. Me, I'm a state youth committee person for my county. I was chosen amongst the precinct people, and as part of that, I'm also a delegate that goes up to the state party conventions and things, and votes and does things like that on behalf of the Republican Party and our county. These guys were smearing us, saying that we're doxing children, putting people at risk. And I'm like, wait a second, if this is true, I don't remember anything like this being a risk. Let me look into that. And people even of this Rhino group contacted me directly and said, did you support this? They're kind of trying to decide, am I going to be on their side or am I going to be on the other side? To me, I'm on the side of whatever is true. So what ends up happening is they are completely fabricating all of this stuff in order to push a emotional persuasion to get people to pull away from this, pull away from the current GOP who, uh, who are basically in control, or who are running things, who are serving the community, serving the party, serving conservative values like the party platform. The party platform, we're not devoted to a party. We're devoted to, we take a platform that we most commonly agree with, and we say, yes, people who abide by this platform, I can get behind in making decisions for my county, my city, my state, my nation. But it was all fabrication. I even called up this person in question who's being used as the fulcrum of and leverage of contention. He said he had no idea this was going on. He was oblivious to it all. And he was very humble and said, well, this, I can't tell you everything because some of the things are in confidence, but uh, and not that it's like bad or anything, it's just private for him. But he said that he's being pressured. And I said, well, these guys pressuring you out of Boise, they don't care about you, because when taxes come around, you're gonna be removed anyways, because it's gonna be shown that you are not living in this state, that you can't represent this. It is fraudulent. Now they're knowingly trying to do this because they think they can articulate around the rules. These are not people who have your best interest in mind. However, there was nasty um, uh, nastiness a little bit, in my opinion, on the other side of the conservative side. And I talked to those guys too, and I said, I don't agree with the way you guys handled things. But talking to this very important person, given a position by the Biden administration, he was also asked to work on a paper which specifically targeted members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Mormons, as those that those of that religious affiliation who support Trump would equate to extremism, terrorism, and a threat to democracy. Now, I don't care if whether someone is a Trump supporter or not a Trump supporter. I really don't care. Uh, but the fact that that was being proposed, and they made it so enticing that it blinded him from realizing the consequences of that, was severe to me. The fact that they're asking a person to go against his own group, his own religion, and to make them out to be an enemy of the state. Well, it sounded like he was going to go through with it. I talked to him. I said, you cannot do this. First of all, there's all this other stuff that's going to happen to you legally. You're going to be you're going to be a fall guy. The Democrats are going to close in on you. They're going to blame it on Republicans. Republicans are going to say, "Oh, he wasn't. He was just doing the bidding of that guy." It doesn't matter. We've already got it in our paperwork that he's one of yours. Anyways, he stopped doing what he was doing. Said, "Focus on your family. These people don't care about your family. Resign from your position. Cut your ties. Just focus on yourself, your family, the Savior. Focus on those things." And from what I understand, I believe he did that. Um, he did come out and resign. Very peaceful transaction. He actually asked me, "Jonathan, what should I do?" And he said I was one of two people out of the entire state who called him to ask him how he was and what the facts were. That should speak volumes too. The fact that we do have opportunists on one side and we have opportunists on the other side. I Christmas girl, the political person that we're talking about, I don't want to reveal his name, but people who are privy to what's happened around here the past year will know. But I also just I don't want to speak negatively of him. I feel like he was in a very naive situation and was enticed so to such an extent that it blinded him from the consequences of his actions and from what could have happened. We could have had a published paper by a Republican, a notable Republican and businessman, that would have targeted Latter-day Saints who support Trump as being equating to terrorists, equating to a threat to democracy. We barely avoided that. And I'm not sure if it's because what I said to him, uh, or if there's other people that maybe talked to him. I hope that he prayed about it, and that's where he got his answer. But I felt like I was acting on promptings to do what is right, I wasn't taking a political faction. I was trying to find the facts. Needless to say, we are still getting smeared in the local paper by people who do not know the facts. I get in contact with these people who are smearing us, and I say, hey, these are the facts. Please don't publish this stuff and create more contention. We need to be peacemakers, right? Remember the prophet. We need to be peacemakers. So please don't embarrass yourself by putting lies out there to the public to try and generate political persuasion, emotional persuasion to lean in your support. That is dishonest. It is manipulative. It is wrong. They did it anyways. So I had to go and publish the facts. And in fact, I talked to these guys, and they were in contact with the newspaper as well, and they retracted what their responses were to me to make them sound better. But needless to say, I had the facts out there, and I just said, look, this was never on the table. This is deception. I gave them the opportunity to not publish deception and to consider their ways, and yet they went ahead with it. So here we are. Fast forward to today. We have recently $100,000 funneled in from outside our county to go towards our county, our areas, to vote in new precinct members to replace our conservative precinct members who put themselves out there on their own dime to help educate the public. Now, these guys, a few of them have showed up to our meetings, our monthly meetings, and this is a lot of where the hostility comes from. This is a lot of the hostility I was trying to get away from. And we invited them. We said, come, hear for yourself, because what you're saying is dishonest, is not true. So please come. We have the facts, we have the notes, we have everything. Yet these guys, upstanding members of the church and members of society, blinded somehow by I don't know what. I've given them the facts, and they still persist in this belligerent hatred. But no, I mean, one of these guys is a high council member, and that's difficult for some people. I've encouraged, well, we forgive 70 times 7. You know, we always worldwide, totally forgive, a holy completion. We forgive, but we keep going. I've always kind of gone with this principle of kill them with kindness, to serve the people until they love you, like Ammon, right? And that's worked in the past with professors and other people. But these guys, it's like as soon as I try talking to them, and I do it very, very nice. I believe I'm being very nice and smiling. I'm cordial, saying, how are you doing? What's going on? Just so you know, something is troubling me about what's going on here. I've even been supportive. I'm like, hey, glad you're wanting to participate in serving our county. Can you tell me why? And they look like hesitant, like scared, like I'm a leper. And they're like, huh, like they don't trust me. And I'm like, I'm being straightforward with you. I'm open, and they don't know how to take it. And I've gotten this reaction many times. And I think there's a lot of people in this general area who are not used to people being authentic, who are not used to people actually saying what's on their mind. And if you know me, I'm not very filtered. I try to be. I accidentally offend people all the time, but it's not on purpose. These guys are having $100,000 funneled into our county from outside the county. Where's that money coming from? Well, I know the person who was in charge of it, but where did he get that kind of money? And I know that that's been the person who's been publishing lies. I've talked to him and I said, this is not becoming of a Latter-day Saint. This is not becoming of a Christian. This is just, I don't understand why you're doing this and how you can justify what you're doing as being right. Like, I don't know if the person had a stroke, what's going on. But I still don't understand what has been blinding them. And I've even asked myself, am I the one that's in the wrong? Like, I'm going to check myself. I'm going to make sure that I'm doing what is right and do that by following up on the facts. Last night I'm speaking at a cottage meeting, and this gets brought up about all kinds of money. I've seen over the years, a couple years ago, I saw millions of dollars funneled into Idaho to support select candidates. These are all coming from Democrat leftist sources. They're putting more money into our state than our own Republicans who supposedly are in charge, right, in this red state. They're putting like 10 times more money into the state than we are of our own dime. You know, because we're conservative. You know, we're thrifty. Or at least we try to be. But now we're starting to see this money surface. We saw it go in years ago, and now it's finally surfacing. We've seen people come to these meetings who rise up contention, and I look over at the guy and I'm like, hey, we're on the same team. Why are you getting so upset? What is going on? Like, I told you, I was there at that meeting. I'm telling you what happened. And you're trying to tell me something that didn't happen, and you're upset with me. You're a professional. You're a well-respected person in the community, at church, everything. How is this not registering? Needless to say, we have secret combinations here in Idaho. So much so that we had yesterday a survey come out of all candidates who are running for office to take a questionnaire to see if we align with the Republican platform. So I was going to take it, but then I had that meeting I had to go to, that cottage meeting, and I spoke with our other conservative candidates, and then come here. I just haven't done it yet. And it doesn't take too long. I'll be interested to see who doesn't take it, and then what people score as. You know, will I score as conservative? I think I would. I mean, that's what I believe. I believe in the Judeo-Christian values. I believe in Scripture. But one question I posed to the audience last night was, where do we think this is all going? How do we think this is all going to end? There's a lot of people who think that there is no judgment in the future by God. They're basically becoming Nimrods in their own eyes. They're building up their own name, their own kingdoms. They're doing everything for themselves. And I'm like, guys, we have been poisoned by degrees for decades. Little by little, poisoned by degrees. Heck, we're told about that in the scriptures. Poisoned by degrees until ultimately it's going to slip entirely and be gone in a blink of an eye. It's not going to be saved in Washington. We know that. Constitution, I mean. It'll be saved among good, righteous people. Maybe not even righteous people, but people who desire accountability and freedom. Freedom from God, not by the state. As I was considering this yesterday, I thought about the Israelites in Egypt. Now, they came into Egypt. They found safety there and preservation. They're welcomed. And if you think about it, this is happening about the second intermediate period of Egypt. after the Middle Kingdom, before the New Kingdom, is when the Hyksos come in and are in charge. The Hyksos are basically like kissing cousins to Abraham. They're basically like a parallel group of city states from Mesopotamia, and these people broke off during when all those things crashed down. Um, we have historical synchronism with Terah, Abraham's father, which Teru of Urkesh, who was a ruler of Urkesh, but quickly lost control of that city state and ended up becoming basically like a gun for hire, an assassin. And this ended up leading to everything being crumbling around him. And he writes in the Mari tablets, the Mari letters, I have become as a Hapiru, meaning he's now a tent dweller, a gun for hire. As I actually mentioned to Dr. Falk last night, uh, biblical Egyptologist, and I asked about synchronisms with Melchizedek in history around the time of Abraham. He's like, it's about 1720 BC. That's around Abraham's time. But Abraham basically, the way he described Abraham, I said, that sounds kind of like an ancient godfather. He's like, that's exactly what it was. And I'm like, part of me thinks that's kind of cool. Because that mobster mentality is a distortion of the true leadership. Distortion, right? But what I came to understand is these Israelites who once found safety in Egypt quickly found themselves in bondage. We have the entrance of the 18th dynasty, the new kingdom of Egypt, and pharaohs that don't know Joseph. They're coming up from Thebes. They're overtaking the Hyksos, pushing the Hyksos out. These Asiatic rulers from the north, they're pushed out. Israelites remain. But there's a stigma now. There's a stigma against them because they're somewhat associated. They're considered Asiatic. Well, they're also a good first line of defense to use against wars against the Hittites, right? So you don't want to lose them. You don't want to lose your workforce. But also Pharaoh starts putting harder and harder burdens on these guys. They've already painted them as not people to that they're not true Egyptians. So they've created a bias of hatred against the Israelites, gave them difficult burdens of work. Then they're in economic slavery. They're not getting the full pay of the work that they're doing. They're in situations like we are in now, where the inflation has gone up. Now, it was specifically against the Israelites and Egyptians up in that north area. Because not all of the people who fled out of Egypt were strictly of the house of Israel. Blood. Many of them were also Egyptian and other Asiatics that associated and combined with the different clans or tribes. But the thing is, they had been in bondage for so long and reliant on the state. They wanted freedom of religion. They wanted to have the promises of their fathers fulfilled. They come and have that freedom, and quickly they realize they can't handle that freedom from bondage. So much so that they want to return to Egypt to their bondage because they had gone so long, they didn't know what liberty actually meant. Liberty is not having everything done for you. This is like the Garden of Eden motif, right? the return to Eden, the return to the presence of God. We do this through keeping our covenants, right, with God, and by following the path, the covenant path of Christ, Jesus Christ. That is a return to Eden in a sense. But the way ancient kings took this is, you've seen in Mesopotamia, in Babylonia, they have the little pine cone motif and the tree of life thing. And you have this, people are like, it's Anunnaki, the ancient gods of thousands of years ago. What it is they, in the handbag, you see the handbag that they carry all the time in the pine cone, and people say this must be ancient knowledge. Blah. Well, really, the pine cone is an applicator. The bag or the bucket is actually filled with pollen. It's very symbolic. You dip the pine cone in the pollen, and you go and pollinate the trees, as if to say the king is providing a garden. That's why we see the Babylonian hanging gardens. Again, this is what, to me, that's makes sense, and there's a lot of people in disagreement, mainly fringe people, who believe that they're aliens. I don't know, but this is to say it's like another tree of life motif. It's another Garden of Eden, another temple procession, right? It's just done through a different culture, and we see this all over these ancient temples. We simply go, well, it's not exactly like the Hebrews, so it's not connected at all. No, it's just diffused through time and through different cultures, and then through apostasy, a falling away from the truth, where kings actually went from serving the people and bringing people closer to God and being high priests and helping bring up a more righteous people closer to God, who are willing to be a Zion people who serve one another, look out for one another. And then it became these leaders who wanted to make names for themselves, who wanted to rule over others, who wanted to be like Cain, master mayhem, and through their cunning take property from others, to gain more power and wealth, because their kingdom was here on earth. They didn't care anymore about a kingdom of heaven. That is still happening today. But yeah, the pine cone, dip it in the bag filled with pollen. It's funny, the Navajo even carry bags that filled with corn pollen, and they'll do what the Israelites do, and with the bread offering or the grain offering, and they go to all four cardinal directions. In some cases, they'll even do the sky, as above, so below. Right? The Navajo do very same thing, and I find that not surprising. Right? Uh, so sorry, I went off on a tangent, but this subversion of liberties that the Israelites faced came by small degrees over time. And then it came by just new leaders simply not knowing history, not knowing what they were coming into. In fact, in Doctrine and Covenants, section 111, verses 9 through 11, you have is like the Kirtland period, right? You have leaders, including Joseph, who are going to Salem, Massachusetts. Salem, right? That's cool. And they're admonished by the Lord to study the more ancient inhabitants, and that great treasures would be available to them to learn of the early settlers and the more ancient inhabitants. I kept reading and I couldn't find anything more on that subject. I'm like, what? They didn't do it? Sounds like they left without obtaining treasures, because they were actually looking for financial wealth uh, and help, but there were, I think, other treasures which the Lord spoke of that we do not hear of again. And so I'm very confused about that and very curious, because those native tribes out of Boston, Massachusetts, or Salem, Massachusetts, the whole area, these are Algonquin tribes. And if you saw my video I did earlier, I did find in the Ojibwe language, which is an Algonquin tribe, uh, or Anishinaabe group, Adam on Diamond, except it was Adam, like two A's, Adam Undaman, and it meant strictly Adam buy, purchase, and Undaman was a path or road is from or to a particular place. So it has to be, and the verbiage, there's so many variations on it, but that is the plainest one. And so you can imagine when you put it into a sentence, it really takes on its own meaning. It's not, it gives context. And so to me, I'm looking at Adam and Daman, purchase, price. A cost was made, the purchase, the taking of the forbidden fruit, the fall of man, necessitating a redemption, a buyback, which can only come from the Savior, Jesus Christ. It's funny, we read in the Book of Mormon many times about reference to the Great Spirit. Well, looking at the ancient inhabitants, North America speaks a lot about the Great Spirit. Where you go further south, and there's different names, and that could have been attributed later generations. I think that there was influence all over. There's no doubt about that. But I think there's so many other records of people. In my opinion, there's so many other people who were led by God to various places upon the earth, especially North and South Central America, that we don't have all of the history of. And that is my opinion. Because when I look at history and I look at their oral history, their belief system, you can guarantee yourself they're not worshiping the way it was originally taught. Latter-day Saints don't worship the way things were originally taught as a social group, as a culture, nor do Christians, Muslims. We all have altered it according to our own justifications and culture and understanding. The key is things change when we don't understand the past. The Pharaoh who did not know Joseph, he did not know the history of the past. And when they came into an area and saw this other history, they destroyed it. They eviscerated it. They broke the tablets, they destroyed records, all those things. In those areas up in Goshen, tombs, everything, there's a lot of water damage. If things were preserved at some point, most likely was damaged by flooding and water. And so we're lucky when we do find stuff. What happened when colonizers came here? Settlement didn't really initially or officially come in bulk until after Columbus. That was the key that really set off everything for North and South. And we know that there's Vikings and mixed groups of people, even Algonquin groups that had gone up further and further north through up into Canada to the northeast. And it took them 500 years to come back down, that by the 1600s, when the pioneers, the pilgrims, first come in, with their constitution. They did not set a foot on the land until they had a legal governmental agreement of how they're going to conduct themselves. Now, what happened? Well, in the Algonquin, the Anishinaabe prophecies, and they do have prophecies. They talk about these prophets and the seven fire prophecies, I think. And they discuss how white-skinned people would come and that there would be a long process of what should happen, and that at some point we're going to have a path to take. And now it's funny because I recently heard a church leader, and I think it was mentioned on Christian Homestead the other day, and it really sparked my memory. We talked about greener pastures. Well, the Anishinaabe speak of how the white-skinned people will come to rule this nation, this land, and also the world. That is that Western European group that really sets everything off. That they will look for leaders, young men who come and teach them and share with them and want to learn from them. That's where the first missionaries went. So among these Algonquin tribes, the Anishinaabe tribes. But it says that they will have to take a road, and one road is a rocky road that will cut up your feet and is damaging. The other road is green and luxurious and full of life. And whereas the native groups, they will have to go back on the path to remember who they are, to remember their old ways. And we saw this rise in the 1970s, 60s, and 70s about how they're losing their language, losing their culture, and now their huge desire to preserve it. Because we did a lot of Western education that said, no, forget where you came from. You know, forget the past. There's no ancient inhabitants here. Everyone was just tent dwellers, right? We know that's not right. We know that there's ancient people upon this land, had systems of roads. They had concrete. The Oneida people up near New York, these people, they're called people of the standing stone because they were fleeing a tribe seeking to destroy them, and they fled into some trees or up on a hill. And when the enemy tribe came, all they saw were standing stones, and they couldn't find the Oneida people. Now, is that where the name came from, or is that what they have been called? And that story marks just the narrative of who they are and what they're remembered by. I don't know. But it also sets the precedence that we did have standing stones in North America. Where are those specific ones? I don't know. Probably destroyed and used to frame up somebody's, like store or a city business or city hall, But the pioneers the pilgrims that first came to this nation, the reason they were preserved is because of what the Anishinaabe people were instructed to do. They found protection in actually helping these Europeans. These Europeans end up coming over and taking over everything, but what preserved them was teaching them how to plant, be successful and industrious. They knew that somehow this would be a danger to them, but in the end, it would work out. That the actions that they take would affect their their own family and people 7 generations from now. You know, 7, if that had an idyllic meaning like it does in Israel or to the Jews, that would be like a holy completion, a full completion, a totality of holiness. That in the end, it would all be worth it. And they were preserved. The Oneida people have a unique history. Their framework of government influenced our framework of government. I strongly believe that we need our Native American influence in America again. We need a strong Native American influence. Back to the original traditional ways, the good way, the way that returns to peace. If you need to learn to love someone or people or anything or have a reason to care, study the people's history and look at where they are now. The Lord preserved people for a reason. The Lord loves all of us. Even these locals who are deliberately attacking us, who are trying to remove people with conservative Judeo-Christian values. Now, some of these guys actually come in under the guise saying we are conservative, the conservative action group, right? But we're gonna tell you we're a little bit more moderate. And transgender stuff, yeah, sure, teach it in our schools. Things that are really not good. It's almost like Trump. Not good. Good. Oh my gosh. That they're voting against things that go against the family proclamation. Things that go against our beliefs. Now, President Oaks did instruct us a while back in his talk about the Constitution to not criticize other saints, not criticize people for voting in other ways. I am not criticizing them for voting in other ways. What I am doing is sending up a warning voice that these people are being deliberately deceitful. And the evidence and the proof of it is plain to see for everyone, as long as it's not hidden. As long as we say, well, we love these guys. I love these guys. I've reached out to them. I've talked to them. I've talked to them about their families. They haven't talked to me about my family. I've asked them how they are doing, what's going on. And I felt like I was building a bridge of peace. But really, I'm not sure how effective it was. I feel satisfied with the way I conduct myself, and I feel a love for them. But I also feel like I have greater insight into what is now happening. The things that were testified in Scripture that would happen. The things that should not be a surprise to any of us. Yet we have many people who, as soon as they hear something that it's political, anything like that, they immediately want to go, oh, that's contentious. I'm going to take the higher road and not talk about that. Let me tell you, the reason we have so many problems is because we stopped talking about religion and politics at the dinner table. What do you think Abraham talked about at the dinner table? I don't know. Because the Constitution is to protect us. It's to the people giving authority, allowances to the government, but also limiting the government. Now, I'm not somebody who is so restrictive. There's a lot of people out here that say, we want you to swear to the Constitution. I'm like, yeah, elected officers do swear to the Constitution. And we do have unconstitutional things in law, but now they're law. What do you do? We have to not wait till it's too late. We can't be so myopic and just go, well, he's a good friend. The people I'm running against, I'll give an example. The people I'm running against, one is a guy who's done his due diligence. He's worked here for a long time. He's been a deputy, seen 2 other sheriffs come through. Both those sheriffs are backing him. Both those sheriffs also abused their power and did nefarious things, are highly vindictive, highly retaliatory, and people fear bullying from them. That's the thing, is when you give that much power to somebody, what matters most? Will they protect the Constitution? Well, what are they really asking? Are they going to protect our guns? Yes, of course they are. Until it becomes too hard, then they'll bend over and leave you hanging. Whatever. And it's not going to even happen that way. That's not the way government's functioning at this point. Not in places like this. They would sooner classify us as felons. Hence why I warned that person, that political person of great influence, do not write that paper, do not publish that paper. It will be used as a deliberate attack against Latter-day Saints and people who stand up for the Republican platform, conservative platform, people who are not going along to get along, people who are not focused on what matters most. Wait, did I just say that wrong? It's going to attack people who care about building up the kingdom of God more than building up their own kingdom. That is who we need as our leaders. That is who's being attacked. A paper published recently. Again, this guy's done his due diligence, but he's had poor leadership. And they're going to be so short-staffed, needing to replace him and everything. Who's supporting him in the paper? His former employer who abused their power. The second person I'm running against, who's endorsing him in the newspaper? It's a former commissioner who happens to be his uncle, right? This is a reason why the sheriff, that position, is an elected position and not an appointed position, like the state police chief, like a city police chief. These are elected by the people, held accountable to the people. If our leaders were appointed, well, we already know the type of people. It'd be corruption and nepotism. And so I'm running. I didn't grow up here. I'm not related to half the town like the other guys are. Yet people have gathered around. And as soon as they learn of me, they're telling me, thank you so much. This high traffic area I mentioned at the very beginning of this video. 2 huge signs of my opponents at that intersection. Been there for weeks, maybe months. No, 8 weeks. 2 nights ago, they were taken down and my banner was put up. I think that sends a message. I think people are starting to recognize that there is hope. We don't need to simply go and vote for your cousin or have to have his sign out in front of your house because you fear that he's going to hold a grudge against you. Those are not the kind of leaders we need. We need, the Constitution is meant for an accountable and a high moral character people. Without that, it will eventually crumble into nepotism and corruption. The thing that we hated about kings, right, and family rulers, that will crumble And our future generations, or rising generations, will look at that and they'll say, you know what, that Constitution, it didn't work. And they're going to be just like the children of Israel and go, we can't handle this liberty and freedom because it requires us to work. It requires hardship and growth. It is better for us in the eternal perspective. And even here in this life, if we are willing to be faithful, to act upon what we believe and hope for. Instead, they will turn more to a socialist type thing where they can be commanded in all things, where they don't have to think. The rise of AI, the rise of these conglomerates and industries, monopolies, where everything is consolidated, your liberty, your choice is now limited. Now, a limited choice, In-N-Out burger, that is good. I like that. That's a limited choice I could deal with. Because if I want a burger, I want to select from a burger. If I want to go to another place that has a variety of things, I'll go to another place that has a variety of things. But you see, I'm thinning my hair, not my body, in all the wrong places. But they will hold, our future rising generations will hold to wanting to be commanded in all things, to be acted upon and not to act for themselves, because to act for themselves would be too hard. It's easier to turn on the TV, put the kids in front of it, so you finally get some work done and not have to overcome the trial of the bickering, squeezing. He looked at me. He looked at me. Oh my gosh, it's the end of the world. He looked at me. Right? You know, the ridiculous things kids cry about. Imagine how our Father in heaven feels hearing us and the things that we get upset about. Petty, small things, these political things. How's it all going to end? Well, I know the Savior's going to come, but I'm not going. I want to offer myself up, much like Oliver Granger did, that we see in Doctrine and Covenants 117. The Lord loves effort, something our prophet has said multiple times. The Lord loves effort. He treasures that, and it does far more for us. Why would we try and wait it out, hold out? I would love so much more, and I said this on Watcher Palmer's in a comment in his video yesterday. I would love it if we could just break away from society, away from all the politics and bickering and backbiting and fighting and all of that, and all of the pushing us out, all the deliberate economic hardships that people are putting us through because they want to push people who will not allow them to build up their own kingdom. Anyone who does not allow for that, they want to push out. They see as a threat. So it'd be much easier for me to go out, buy a plot of land out in the Midwest, very fertile, get some of those Amish, put together cabins, and get family together and say, hey, let's make a little village town here for our family, and we'll homestead. We'll take care of one another. We'll be a Zion people. We'll homeschool. We homeschool now. It's hard because the demands on our time are much higher than ever before. But would the problems stop there? Probably not. Most likely not. There is no place else to hide. The only place to hide, the only sanctuary is in Zion, is in the covenant path, keeping our sacred covenants with the Lord. I have insight, knowledge, and enough experience to recognize issues, threats, and things that could be done better. I'm not coming in as a candidate for sheriff saying that I'm more qualified and more efficient and better at everything than everybody else. In fact, I hope I'm not, right? That would be dangerous. That'd be a lot of pressure. And I'm not comparing myself to Moses. I'm just looking at a uh, a universal leader that we all recognize, Moses. He needed a spokesman. He had hesitancies about his own capability. He had to seek counsel from his father-in-law and how to delegate authority and leadership to other people, not just any people, honest, good people, people who could be trusted to do the right thing because they have integrity, because they hold themselves accountable before God before they hold themselves accountable before men. They hold themselves to a higher standard than what man can do. Man holds a superficial accountability. As a probation parole officer, they didn't care about where the person's actual heart was. Like, technically, I'm sure they talked about that, but when it really came down to doing the work, they just care about the surface level, the superficial stuff. Like, you don't have to be. They don't have to have a change of heart. They just need to. You just need to not see it. You just need to have enough to know or to not think that it's happening. You need to not have evidence on the surface that's not happening. If we're in private, we don't care. Now, they don't say that out loud, but that's the way they treat it. Now, I'm not perfect, but I do believe that we cannot think that we will achieve success in anything that we do if we go, well, this guy, he's had more years of experience in this area. He's probably better. He's been in this county a long time. I bet he is the best for the job. He's most qualified, isn't he? How's Biden doing? He's been in politics for a long time. He's been in DC a long time. Does that make him a better person? Does that make him a better leader? No. What's missing? The character, the integrity, that connection of a leader and their love of God and their accountability to God. Now, I'm not saying I'm a holy person or anything. There's lots of things I need to improve on, but I also don't believe I should bury the talents that the Lord has given me while I refine and work on everything else. And I think that goes for all of us. All of us tend to understand that we have inadequacies. And because of that inadequacy, we tend to go, I'm not right for that position. I'm not right for this. Um, so because of that, I, I I'm not going to do that. What we need is honest people, people of a good heart, good mind, people who at least try. A red flag to me is somebody who will not correct a mistake. If they are making a mistake and it's not a weakness that they're working on, it's something that they deliberately desire more than anything, right? I don't want to elect somebody who is selective about how he enforces the law, how he or she enforces the law. I don't want them to have a shady habit of secretly recording people. I don't want them to have a habit of going, well, I know this kid is really cool. I don't want them to get in trouble. Uh, there's some extra stuff. I know that's going to be another charge. I'm going to hide this evidence. And I'll give him a wink, tell him he's cool. That is called corruption. I get the heartfelt part. The thing is we're fact finders. Gather the evidence and you present it to the courts. They're going to dismiss a ton of stuff. I guarantee you. They make deals in freaking courtrooms. They're not going to be held to the max thing. It's like the law of Moses. That was never meant to be max punishment right on, right off the bat. That was an opportunity for a judge to come in as a mediator, a foreshadow of kind of like a savior, and give you an opportunity to correct your error. So you have opportunity to experience redemption and forgiveness and to correct something. And over time, it all gets distorted. We need to study the scriptures. We need to study our history. We need to put ourselves out there. I am the least likely person to win the election, and I'd be much happier going and starting a homestead and getting away from everything, but problems follow. They grow if they're not hindered. They how are we going to feel when we go before the Lord and say, well, I just don't like the idea of campaigning. I don't want to be prideful and make something of myself. But I thought I would just do the right thing, not be contentious, not get political, and I would just quietly vote if I have the chance. And I'm sure it'll all work out because the Lord is going to come someday. Yeah, the Lord is going to come someday, but everything that we're experiencing now is for our good and is calculated to prepare us for that. And He's giving us time. He's giving us warnings. He's giving us time, and we're getting complacent. There's a reason only 5 virgins make it. And again, there's tons of people that they check all the boxes, read scriptures. They do, read scriptures every day. They pray every day as a family, and they care about things. But at the same time, I see people who do that are not gaining from those opportunities. So, well, what did you gain from your study this morning? Oh, same story. Nephi broke his bow. Whoops-a-daisy. Right? Like, okay, but what did that teach you? Oh, yeah. So is that what we're doing, or are we recognizing and striving to understand what the Lord is trying to teach us through our everyday experiences, through our everyday challenges, and through the opportunities that present themselves? It can be hard to discern sometimes. Why do I keep getting put in this position? This is a huge weakness of mine. I can't do it. It goes against everything I want, but this keeps happening to me. How do you determine if that's the Lord trying to teach you something, or if it's something else that you're failing at that keeps bringing you to that position? And that can be very hard, and it takes a lot of discernment, and it takes a lot of questioning whether are you doing something right, but are we also asking the right questions? Um, because I've shared it before, I'll go ahead and share it again. No, actually, I've never shared it on here, so I guess I won't. But I've received reassurances where I felt like I was a complete failure, and I get a reassurance that I feel like I don't deserve. I feel like I'm an imposter, and I'm like I feel like this is putting me in the hardest situation possible, where I it's not good for me. But our weaknesses are to become strengths. Um, but my message to all of you is, I thank you, Spencer Howard, for grateful for being grateful for the insight and saying to keep fighting for truth, zealously striving. Some of the reservations are the strongest places, and adhering to moral standards. That's right. And that's the thing, is when we recognize these other people and recognize, like, yes, I have the gospel, I have the Book of Mormon, I have the restored, uh, these truths restored, but where does that place me? That doesn't mean that the learning stops there. That doesn't mean that that we're more important or anything. That doesn't mean that there's nothing to learn or gain from, even in a spiritual sense, concerning God from other people, simply because they have a different understanding of things. I believe, the world is apocryphal. You have to discern. You have to sift, and the best way to do that is coming to love the people, coming to love what's around you, and then you can sift. You can recognize truth, those strands of truth. And sometimes we overcompensate and start justifying that, no, I have to be an advocate for this thing that goes against the standards of the Lord because I love this person. And the Lord will understand that I love this person. The Lord understands. The Lord loves that person more than you do. It doesn't mean he condones the behavior, nor should we. I love these people who are attacking me. And I know that no matter what they do, it it is nothing. They could destroy my life and livelihood and everything, just be in the best company of souls who have ever walked this earth. But I I am not concerned about what they can do to me. I'm concerned about not taking the opportunity the Lord presents to me and not learning from them. And I think this is a great message for all of us right now, that we don't we don't need to we need to wait upon the Lord, but that doesn't mean isolate and hold out. It and just whew, I'm gonna worry about myself. When we're in the action of serving other people, it refines ourselves. When we go and bear testimony about what we believe, this is a form of repentance as well. We're held accountable to all the things that we say. What we say truly matters. Where have we heard that before? I think we do need to stretch beyond our bounds. We don't want to run faster than we can, than we have strength. But if we're not trying, if we're not running or trying or anything, we're not going to gain that strength either. Strength is meant to be increased. So we'll work on one thing at a time. Serve the people, love the people, but also be aware of what is happening locally. What is happening locally for us is uh, money is being funneled in here, large amounts of money to get precinct people to run against our existing precinct people who are, you know, the most humble, service minded people I've ever met, who I look up to. And these other guys are just far more well established people, but are blind to, because of their own vain ambitions. So I don't know how we help people see that, but we're definitely not going to do it if we just ignore it. We're not going to do it by criticizing and fighting, but we do have to dare to stand alone, dare to make a dare to have a purpose firm, and dare to make it known, as President Thomas S. Monson has stated. What he said is dare to be a Mormon. took that part out. But I think dare to be a saint, dare to stand alone, dare to have a purpose firm, and dare to make it known. We were called on. The Lord trusts us. The Lord, I believe and trust that as we are faithful, act upon our belief and knowledge, as we continue doing what is right, stay on the covenant path, we will find safety there. We've been given a promise by our prophet that our enemies will not overtake us. Does that mean we're going to win every election and win all that stuff? No, but it means that you will not be defeated morally and spiritually. And if the Lord sees fit that you should take a position and win somewhere, then so be it. The Lord will qualify you for that effort and will guide and help you and sustain you. I believe that very strongly. I believe the Lord is aware of each and every one of us, that He loves us, and we will not suffer anything that will not be for our benefit. Does that make sense? But we are not in this fight alone, especially when we adhere to the words of the Lord. So that's my message for today. I hope it has been inspiring and helpful and motivating and helping you to have eyes to see and have a desire to seek out ways that you can grow in more spiritual strengths, talents. See what the Lord is trying to teach you. You guys are probably already doing it. I look up to you guys a lot, and I seek advice from you guys as well. And sorry for the sniffling. A lot of people have complained about that in the past. But we got our apple trees going, getting things planted, and hopefully planted a seed of hope and encouragement with you. And I know that that's not from me, it's from the Lord. Those things that are good, like the haystack. Monet painted haystacks. People thought, why does he paint haystacks? Why is he so obsessed with that? It wasn't the haystack. He was using the haystack as kind of like a reflection or refractionary backdrop for the light at different times of day and different seasons. He was trying to show the light. It's not so much the haystack, but it's the light. And I hope that it's not so much me, my personality, or what I'm saying, but what the Spirit is teaching you personally and inspiring you to do. And hopefully I am able to communicate that through my limited knowledge. That Spirit is filtered through my inadequacies. Hopefully you get something from it. Thank you. Losing my voice. Take care. Love you.